Welcome to the Send More Offers Real Estate Show with Brandon Barnes, showing you how to do wholesaling deals consistently without having to go on seller appointments. Learn the key tips and strategies that Brandon's students use to find deeply discounted properties that are pennies on the dollar, all while avoiding wear and tear on their vehicle, body, and freedom. Whether you're looking for your first deal or your next deal, it's time to send more offers with your host, Brandon Barnes.
Hey, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. Excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. We have a few, probably more than a few mutual friends from masterminds and other events and folks that are just generally in the industry that have continued to sing your praises. Even Steve Trang, I've seen some ads from him. So I know you guys are doing great things in the pay-per-click world and helping investors do more deals. So let's get right into that. One of the headlines was, you guys have helped folks close over $50 million in assignment fees annually. When did this start for you? How did you get into it? And then give us a little feel for a background on PPC in general.
Yeah. More than happy to answer all your questions. This, for me personally, this starts, I'm a little bit weird in this industry. I feel like most people who serve this industry in some way, they started out as real estate investors. And then they saw I have this need and I built this product that solves that problem. And then here we are. I'm a little bit weird. I kind of started backwards. I started as a marketer, which I actually think is a good thing because I have focus there. I know my lane, and my lane is not real estate investing, but I have come to understand it pretty well. But yeah, I started as a marketer. I started this company when I was a sophomore in college, and I was just hungry to find a way to start a business and get into digital marketing. And
that's amazing.
Ironically, I started working with a whole bunch of different companies and different industries, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was like not niche at all. This is about 7 years ago.
Well, let me ask you, were you studying marketing in college?
Technically, yes. Although the digital marketing moves fast enough that college programs aren't super helpful. It's still helpful.
Right.
Like there's some principles of marketing that are just like always true, but I wouldn't say my college degree really means anything. I have one. But yeah, I started at that time. And ironically, one of the first clients I ever started working with was a real estate investor based in Utah. And at that time, it was just like, I have my client that I work with that does e-commerce. I have my client that does B2B SaaS, and I have my client that does real estate. And that one's different because I'm advertising to try to buy things instead of to sell things, which is just a weird concept compared to what we usually do.
Let me guess, if it was a big time real estate investor in Utah, was it either Cody Hoffine or the guys over at Investor Machine?
It was Cody Hoffine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Shout out to Cody. That's my guy.
There's a couple. Between Cody and Jason, they have a lot of the Utah market covered. But yeah, at that time, that was actually less true. This is like early on in Cody's journey too. And when he came to me, ironically, I know his business partner. I didn't even meet Cody for years because I guess he just doesn't do this kind of stuff. His business partner managed the marketing.
And I'm sure you were doing the work, right? You were putting in the work and helping things out and growing the business, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess that's a good note. Maybe I would have met him earlier if there was a problem. But yeah, mostly talked to his business partner and stuff. But yeah, they had done like the year before we started working together. I want to say it was like $150,000 in revenue from their online marketing. It was close to a 2x return, which they were overall just like not super happy with. Over a period of 3 years, we took them to about 1.4 million worth of wholesale assignment fees from online marketing exclusively, and they had other channels contributing to a larger revenue overall as a company from not that much more spend. It ended up being close to a 5x return overall between all the channels. So that was kind of like my intro to the real estate space. I was still doing work in other industries at this time. So what happens is, Cody sends me somebody, like one of his friends that wants to know how he's doing this. And I talk to them, and then that person sent me somebody. And I kept on, getting these referrals in real estate. At some point I look at my business and most of our clients are in real estate, and I haven't even tried to make that happen. I just I'll take a referral if it comes my way. And that's around that time is when we made a hard decision to just focus exclusively on real estate. We've been doing that for about 3 years now. And so much has changed in that time period. That's kind of when my company really started to grow the fastest, was we just focused just on real estate and started working with real estate investors. And And that's where the last 3 years have brought a lot of growth for us in terms of like the product that we have and how much value we add. And that's kind of like in a nutshell what the journey was. I wish I was like some brilliant person who had it all planned from the beginning, but I kind of fell backwards into it and was sort of like, nudged into real estate. And I'm super happy that I'm here now. Like I love the clients that we work with, and I love that we generally work with entrepreneurs that are trying to, do something different with their lives than, there's a history of in the family, and it's usually pretty cool. So anyways, that's what we do. We focus just on motivated seller lead generation, and we do it through a few different online channels. If you know online marketing, the big channels there are going to be PPC, Facebook ads, and organic search or SEO. Is what some people call it. So those are the three.
And we'll get into that in a little bit more in depth. But I want to pause real quick because, just a quick backstory on, my experience and history with one of your first real estate clients, Cody Hoffine, where we were in the same mastermind coaching group with Wholesaling Inc. Tom Crow, shout out to Tom Crow and Brent Daniels and what they're doing over there. And he was one of the few folks that really championed having multiple marketing channels going at the same time, because in this business, and especially this is back 2016, 2015, everybody says, hey, focus on one thing, dominate one channel, and then grow from there. And, what was hot at the time was cold calling, right? And outbound marketing was really big, and things have just changed so much in the real estate and wholesaling space, where I'm telling, my clients and anybody, that I'm working with is, hey, you have to really start to focus on reinvesting in inbound marketing. So PPC, just give folks a brief background. So those are the channels. Is this something, and I'm kind of sure of the answer, but is this something that folks should consider trying to do on their self, run their own ads? Or is it just so complicated that you definitely need somebody experienced running your ads for you?
Yeah. I mean, one thing you're going to learn about me, Brandon, is I'm pretty transparent. So I'll tell you everything. And the truth is, there's some people who figure this out on their own. For every one of those, there's a lot that don't, because it's honestly just pretty difficult. And the skills required are different. And then there's also data components that you can't really replicate. Like, here's an example. Let's just say you knowing very little about PPC. But let's just say you're savvy with data and you're a smart person. I'm assuming those things are relatively true about you. And I gave you all of our data that we have as a company. Let's just say we put you against me, and I have all of my experience, but none of the data that we have as a company. Who would produce a more efficient PPC campaign? And in my opinion, I think you would win that battle.
Really?
And that's how important data is in PPC. It's wildly important. So there's a few reasons I work with an agency can be good. I mean, people I know even that can figure it out on their own. At some point, our goal in this business, and sometimes people don't get this yet because they just haven't grown yet as business owners, and they're just not at that stage of their business. But usually the goal of a business owner is to do as few things as possible that are essential to the operations of the business, not to necessarily take more things on. That's more of the high income job kind of mindset, not necessarily the business owner mindset. So even people I know, we have tons of clients that used to run it themselves and even did it successfully and eventually delegated it to us. And what they did is they basically just wasted 2 years learning how to do that, to find out that as soon as they unlock that, their business grows to a point that they don't want to do it anymore. And then they're back to, where they work. So my honest opinion for more people than not, working with an agency is smart for online marketing, just because of the data advantages and because it doesn't make sense to learn it yourself. But like I said, you'll find people in every boat.
Yeah. And look,
some that are successful.
For sure. And, just to be clear for the audience, beginning and intermediate wholesalers that are listening, right? Pay-per-click are those ads you're paying for folks that will click on an ad to fill out a web form, usually on your website, as a lead saying they're raising their hand. Hey, I want to sell my home fast in your city. Right. So, what is the data telling you? What is the experience telling you? If you could kind of share with us a bit about kind of, what's going on right now and some of the insights that you guys have as a company with all of this data and experience.
Yeah. It's all a great question. And here's what I've noticed. So there's some really big core marketing channels in this industry. And in my opinion, like the most core marketing channels that a lot of people are using are going to be like cold calling, direct mail, and cold text. Granted, you and I probably both know cold text is on its way out. That said, it's still, one of those core channels that have fueled real estate businesses for a period of time here. So there's something that like is similar across those. Like digital marketing is just completely different. Usually people just don't really understand. So if we're talking about those channels, they all start with a list. That's what's really unique about them, right? We have this list of properties, and then we're going to skip trace some, or we're going to direct mail the addresses, or whatever the case is. So the whole game of everything is, how do I get to this list, and how do I identify people that are going through divorce, or have inherited properties, or filing for bankruptcy or pre-foreclosure, whatever the situation is. And the idea is that the list is relatively predictive. So people get like really hung up on that. And then they come to online marketing and they think, well, how do I target probate leads? How do I target foreclosure leads? The reality is, if you just think about it, Google has data that is so much better than the data that you're used to using. Google has what's called intent data. Like, for example, you and I are both part of Family Mastermind. I'm going to Family Mastermind next week. Google knows that I'm going to Family Mastermind next week. How does Google know that?
It's on your calendar.
Yeah, it's on my calendar. Or does Google have an idea that I'm going to Tampa next week? Well, they probably saw that I Googled flights to Tampa from Salt Lake City. So you think like, what's more predictive? If we're doing this list based, and we'd be basically saying like, who are the real estate educators and stuff? And then we're going to try to use that information to say that they might be going to Family Mastermind. If we're smart and we're using Google intent, we look at what is the person searching online, and what does that say about what they're likely to do? Turns out people who search for plane tickets to Tampa end up traveling to Tampa, like more often than not. And that's a very predictive data. So search intent is actually one of the most predictive data points that exists in all of marketing. And it's so different from the data that we have otherwise. But like the fact that somebody types into Google, like we buy ugly houses, or sell my house fast, or we buy houses, or selling the house as is, like it could be any variety of key terms that they could type into Google. The fact that they type that tells you a lot about who they are as a person. And it tells you about their intent. Like what's more qualifying of a lead than an intent to sell their house? That's a huge thing. So that's what people like. If we're talking about why do people love PPC so much, that's a core reason that they love PPC. It's just because you get these leads where it's the most inbound form of marketing. Like a lot of people talk kind of black and white about outbound versus inbound. The reality is it's a gray situation. Like really outbound channels are going to be like cold call, text. There's going to be semi-inbound channels, which are like TV, radio, direct mail, Facebook ads, kind of fall in the middle where like you're going to them first and then they're choosing to call you. Like I sent you a postcard, but then you got that postcard and then now you call me. Versus you go fully inbound, that's search marketing. That's like, if it were direct mail, it's like this person's literally like going to the mailbox where you're hoping to find the postcard from somebody who wants to buy your house. And you get that, right? This is like me going to Google. I'm looking for you. And it's a different type of lead. That's a different type of conversation. That's what gets people excited.
Love it. Good stuff. And so what are some of the things that people need to consider if they are wanting to go down this route? They say, hey, look, I have some money now. I've done some deals. I want to start doing inbound leads. I want to go with PPC. What are some of the other things that they need to consider, or the infrastructure they need to build around in their business, of course, to be successful once the ads start running?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is what you just said. I closed some deals, I got some revenue, I'm ready to put some money towards this. Yeah, so the thing about PPC that is most frustrating for some people is it's not fully a beginner's game. It's a more expensive marketing channel, and you could have a month where your cost per lead is like 3 times higher than what it will be the next month. And you can have like inconsistency in the lead quality. And like it's like a natural thing for the channel to do. And usually you end up with a little bit of a higher cost per deal compared to something like cold calling.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the deals can be better, and the total operational resources required for PPC are better. So I think of PPC and like really heavily inbound forms of marketing, a little bit more like your money working for you and a little bit less like your time is working for you, like would be true with cold call, for example. Even if you're not doing the cold calling, you're still fielding 40, 60, 80 leads to get to a deal.
Right.
That's a lot of work ultimately, or your acquisitions manager's doing that, So that's the first thing I would think is it's not usually the first channel people go after. And the reason it's not the first one is because it takes some time to ramp it up to where you want it to be. And it takes a level of consistency to be successful. And it's not necessarily the cheapest way to find a deal. It is one of the best ways to build a real scalable business, once you can afford it well. So I'd say for a lot of people, like the mistakes they make at the beginning is they're just kind of hoping for a miracle. Like, I'm just going to invest some money into this. And I only have 1 month of budget set aside. And then I'm just assuming, because everybody talks about PPC being great, that it's going to return amazingly in that first month. And then I'm going to get some deals, and that's how I'm going to pay for months, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which I'm not saying we haven't had clients that have done that and been successful, but it's not the kind of odds that I would want to be betting on if I were a real estate investor. Right. So you definitely want like budget and time. And once you're in a place where you can have that and you need that inbound lead flow, that's where it starts to be pretty attractive.
Yeah. And as we were talking about the infrastructure, look, I want to let anybody that's listening to this know and understand fully that you have to have a solid sales system locked in and ready to go to be able to turn these golden leads into deals closed, right? So let's just assume that, we're talking about somebody that can close, they're going to get the deal done if they get a good solid lead. What's the ramp up phase for someone, as far as budget goes, as far as, time and effective, how much time they'll need to really actually have this returning, and paying for itself. And then how many kind of leads, per, opportunity does it take to get something closed via PPC?
Yeah. It's kind of two questions there, like how long, and then also like how many leads does it take to get the success that you're looking for? How long? Yeah, it's one of our most common questions that people ask us is how long does it take to get results on PPC? How you define results turns out is the main thing that the answer to that question depends on, because there's different levels of success that you can kind of get at different times. And different markets, I'm sure, right? Markets are different. And sometimes you feel like you got some things dialed in on your team, and they're just not as dialed in as you think. That happens. Mm-hmm. That happens too. So the best thing that I could share for that is a methodology that we have that we call patience, profit, growth. And the way that works is months 0 through 3, we generally call like the patience months. And what that means is we're generally looking to find success in our leading metrics. So like month 1, if we like don't get as many leads as we expect, like at that point, I'm not worried. Like it's normal. Or sometimes month 1 just like hits it out of the park. I also don't think that's like our new baseline that we're going to just hit it out of the park every month. But like at the very beginning, it's just not super representative of the future, mostly because you have kind of a small sample size. A lot of people like to pretend that statistics and the laws of large numbers don't exist, and they do. Like they're very real rules that like we have to operate within in this world. And so usually months 1 through 3, like the goal for me is like, let's get this campaign to a point where we're hitting the kind of numbers from a cost per lead standpoint and from a gross lead qualification standpoint that correlate with the long-term result that we're looking for. So the important thing here is that there's leading metrics and there's lagging metrics. You should be able to get your leading metrics in order in those first 3 months. The lagging metrics can take a little bit more time. Months 3 to 6 is what we call a profit period. And the reason for that is because usually, and that's the point where our clients are actually passing that break-even point on the campaigns, where they have some contracts, maybe from the first 3 months, maybe a little bit later, depending on where your budget's at and stuff. And then they start to close in the deals, and then they start to recoup their advertising spend. So we plan on sometime between months 3 and 6, kind of breaking out of the negative, so to speak. Right. And then like long term, we're looking for like higher multiples on returns. And usually that even happens if you just let your leads flow through the cycle of getting closed and those deals turn into those contracts turn into deals and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I would generally say is like, so a lot of people, you'll talk to PPC agencies that will say like, oh, it takes 3 months. And I don't necessarily disagree that it takes 3 months, but I guess what I'm arguing is after that 3 months, once it is like, maybe it takes 3 months to ramp up. Now that it's ramped up, you have to be consistent with it for a period of time to see what it actually accomplishes while it's ramped up. It's like if I'm like taking a car 0 to 60, I don't measure the average speed that it had while I was ramping up to 60. I just want to measure that it's 60. And that's right. I now have to look forward to measure that. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. It does depend on the market and it does depend on the budget. One thing that you'll notice is it will be quicker if you're in more markets, which is, I guess, opposite of what a lot of people think.
Well, and I was going to get to that, the local versus the national model in a second, but if you can just touch on kind of in a median market, an average market, like what type of budget are you advising clients, newer beginner clients with PPC to start with to have this track of growth?
Yeah, a lot of our clients, so some of it depends on the size of your market, right? I could say something here and then somebody's going to come to us and we're going to tell them like, no, that's not for you because your market's too small. Like you can't spend that or whatever. But as a generality, a lot of our clients start out somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000 a month in terms of the marketing budget. Well, including management fees and ad spend, will go as low as about $3,000. It's the lowest we'll go. We don't often recommend that, especially for some smaller markets. It could be more appropriate. But like I said, somewhere between 5 and 15 is pretty common. And really, it's just, I mean, the more you spend, the more data you'll collect, the faster you'll get results. That's kind of the game and how it works. So we try to, it's tough because people always ask, what's the right budget? There's kind of no such thing as the right budget. There's just sort of things that push you down and things that push you up. Like if you got to get 5 deals a month, then $2,000 a month is not your budget, right? So you have to think about those things and plan it based on that. At the end of the day, from a return on investment standpoint, we don't see any relationship across our clients between budget and return on investment on a macro level, where like you need at least X dollars per month for it to work. But there can absolutely be, like the more you spend, the more consistent it'll be. And oftentimes those who spend the least also give it the least time to work. And that's where you have a problem. Like if you have a smaller budget, you have to give it a lot more time. And if you have a larger budget, it doesn't take quite as much time.
Got it. No, that's super helpful. And you know, the numbers always change, right? How many leads does it take to get something closed, right? Cold calling back in the day, it was what, like 20, maybe 25. That's probably ballooned to more than that because there's so many more people cold calling. What would you say is a good feel for, you know, some of your top clients of how many PPC leads it takes to get something closed, contract or closed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually we have it all even broken out into percentiles. We can basically even show you like where you stand. I can tell you average right now is somewhere between 15 and 16 leads per contract. If you look at our percentiles, like our top clients, let's just say our top 30% of clients to fall in that range, you'd be at 11 leads per contract or lower. Our bottom 10% benchmark is about 24 leads per contract. So it gives you kind of an idea. So I think a good goal for a lot of people to shoot for is something like 12 leads per contract or lower. But I mean, we have as part of that data set clients that have had 100 leads per contract or something like that. So it does depend on like your market and it depends on your team's performance. The cool thing about what we can do is we can put your numbers against our other clients to help you know how you are performing, like adjusted for things like which keywords you're getting ads from and stuff like that. And then the other thing that we can do is we can break down that whole funnel and identify a specific problem. Like you have 20 leads per contract. The reason you have 20 leads per contract, the only metric that looks weird is that the rate of contacting leads is 60%. And what we expect it to be is 85%. And then we can identify, like, instead of like we have a leads per contract problem, we have a lead contacting problem. And that helps us get a lot more laser focused on how we improve things. So that's kind of our process is like we do a lot with our average data and we like to compare numbers to that average data. And that's pretty insightful, especially if you're one of these companies that has like, you know, a couple acquisitions managers or something like that. You think of companies that have like 20, 30 salespeople, it's really easy to see how those salespeople are performing. But if you have 2, then you just never know. It's really hard. But if you can compare that to a larger data set, then you can understand where you're falling short or where you're doing really well.
Love it. And you kind of already touched on, you know, nationwide versus a local market, that, you know, folks that do, you know, spread out and go wider instead of deeper in one market can often have success faster with PPC. So I'll skip over that. And I do want to get some trends and future outlook from you. But before, I also wanted to ask, what separated your company? Because I think I heard your name and the Bateman Collective Group, And, there was other PPC performers and companies that were out there. And then overnight, not overnight, but really quickly, I started to hear your name, and your company's name a lot more. So what was do you guys have a secret sauce? Like, what was the thing that helped, propel you guys to really working with the top investors these days?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there are some things we do different, and without going like way, way, way deep into like how PPC works, I don't want to bore you with like a massive monologue. But if I were to summarize like some of the things that we do different, data is really, really critical to PPC. And we've just mastered ways of using data that give us a huge advantage. Like, I'll give you an example. Most PPC managers, what they're communicating to Google and what they're telling them they want is leads, because that's the most easy thing. It's what we call an online action. Somebody fills out a lead form online, so it's simple to track. What we like to do with our clients is we track those things all the way close. It's why I have a lot of this data that I share with you about like lead close rates and stuff like that. You talk to any other company and you ask them how many leads it takes per contract. What's going to happen is the salesperson that you're talking to is going to think through their mind of the 3 clients that they know and how many leads per contract they had, and then probably take the best of the 3 and then tell you what the leads per contract number was there. We have the actual data showing like because like a lot of our clients, you ask them how many leads per contract they have, they'll tell us numbers that are way better or way worse than their actual numbers. And we have the actual data. So I guess what I'm saying is data is really, really important. Picture it like this, like all of the historical data that we have feeds an algorithm. And if we can aggregate that data all together and we can make that data more meaningful than just leads, then we could do a really good job of training Google's algorithm on not just how to find leads, but how to find true motivated sellers and how to find deals from the ecosystem. And that's like, if I were to just summarize the difference, that's what it is. And we have tons of content that talks about like those specific things and how they work. But that's at the core, what it is it's focused on generating deals, not leads, and doing that with aggregate data. So we're really smart. Most people just like look at it and they're like, oh, I don't think that keyword's as good as that other keyword. We have data that tells us exactly how much better is that keyword versus that other one. So we can reverse engineer to the penny what it's worth for you to pay for it so that we can get it just right. Like, that's the kind of stuff that we do.
Yeah. And me just kind of being a nerd, I am curious, like, because you started this, right, when you were still in college, like what, if you could explain just kind of in a simple way, how did you collect the data differently than maybe some of the other providers? Did you build a software or something, or did you, just feed it additional information that other people were not feeding the Google algorithm?
Yeah, let me break this up into like 2 specific subsets of this, just to like clarify. So there's, because everybody talks on Google Ads about like your ads and your keywords and your landing pages and like all this stuff that's important. But then there's this whole group of things that are like really, really important that nobody talks about. And that's, how do you give Google more data and how do you give Google better quality data so that it can know how to serve you better, right? So we've done unique things for both of those. On the topic of more data, I'll just give you an example here. And if we're just wearing a podcast and like share my screen and show you how it works. But let's just say you were a client of ours and you launched your campaign yesterday. Maybe yesterday you spent $100. As far as Google's algorithm would be concerned, in an ordinary circumstance, you have $100 worth of data. Like, we bought these clicks and these ones didn't convert, and et cetera. And it uses that data to like fuel, I don't know how familiar you are with machine learning and how it works. Like
a little bit.
The basics of a machine learning algorithm is like, let's just say I took like a classification algorithm and I give it like 100 pictures of things that aren't chairs, and then 100 pictures of things that are chairs. And I tell it which one's which. It starts to notice the trends between those things. So it can know, then it can take a new picture and it could see, is this a chair or is this not? In a similar way, Google's algorithm works with searchers, with the tens of thousands of data points that Google has on them about the websites they visit and the things they buy on credit cards and the searches they've had. It has all that data, right? And it can start to learn with the searcher, is it a motivated seller or is it not a motivated seller? And then it can bid according to that. But it only does that if it has a lot of data. Like, if I fed my algorithm like 3 pictures of chairs and 3 pictures of things that aren't chairs, it's not going to be very smart. But if I fed it tens of thousands of each, then it's going to get really, really smart. So
awesome.
Back to like, let's just say you started with us yesterday. You might have $100 in spend in your account. I could click into that and I could ask the algorithm, what data are you using to bid? And it would tell me it's using $14 million worth of historic ad spend data on this particular bid strategy that you use. And the reason is we actually use a data licensing between Google Ads accounts so that in Google's eyes, our clients collectively are their biggest client in this industry. Does that make some sense? So you're not starting from scratch. You're built on top of something that already existed. So that's like thing number one. That's volume of data. And then on the better quality of data, it's all about just getting deeper than just leads. How do we focus on like those down funnel things? And the way we do that is we get feedback from our clients on each lead individually and how it was. We feed that data to Google. So, because what happens to me all the time, like people come to us saying, I'm upset about my PPC because most of the leads that I get are already listed on the market and I can't figure out what's wrong with it and blah, blah, blah. And then I look at the thing, I'm basically like, you're giving Google a high five every time it gets you a lead that's listed on the market. Yet you're confused and you're upset that it's getting you more of those leads. When it's the feedback cycle that's broken because you're calling something like the thing that you're saying is success isn't actually what is success to you. And then Google's mislearning, and people think that Google's this like malicious thing trying to like screw you out of good leads. Really, it's just getting you what you asked for.
Right.
If you tell them it's good leads and they'll just get more. So yeah, like dialing deeper in the funnel, which you can't do unless you aggregate data, because if you just have one company and you go deep in the funnel, now your data is really sparse and it's not actually useful. So it's a combination between those two things that's really powerful.
Love it. Really, really good stuff. Well, look, I did want to just get your future kind of outlook in the market and how things are going. Is there anything in the data that can kind of tell you, kind of where this is going and maybe just from a lot of your clients across the nation, are things picking back up because things were really hot in 2021, late 2020, things slowed down, cooled off last year. Is it picking back up? What's going on?
Yeah, I guess I'll give you my opinions because some of this I have data for, some of this I have opinions for. What I've seen across our clients is that like up market, down market, lateral market, all of them seem to work. The thing that's really tough is like up market transitioning to down market. That's when we had the biggest issues because buyers are always thinking 6 months in the future, sellers are always thinking 6 months in the past. And then the opportunity for arbitrage just isn't there. Here's the really neat thing about PPC that makes it, in my opinion, like one of the most attractive channels for this industry. Thing number one, more and more motivated sellers every day are searching for their solution for their house sale online. Like historically, this is an older demographic. So what happens with this demographic is whatever they do is just whatever the rest of the world did like 10 years ago, just by nature of it, right? So there was 10 years ago, not that many motivated sellers used Google. And we've seen that the number of people going to Google searching for solutions has gone up and up and up. It's up close to 3x over the past about 5 years. So it's a growing channel, right? There's growing volume there. Secondarily, the price in the PPC, a lot of people don't know how it works. It turns out it works based on an auction system. So the only reason it could be too expensive for you is because somebody else has figured out how to make it work that you just haven't. Maybe they have more exit strategies. Maybe they're better at closing leads. Maybe they have larger deal spreads, like whatever the case is. So the really neat thing about PPC is no matter what market you're in, like let's just say the market took a turn right now that makes it so like this business gets real hard. Well, what's going to happen in PPC? People are going to lower their budgets or they're going to cut it. What's going to happen after you do that? The price is going to adjust to an equilibrium price where it's worth it as long as you're one of the companies that knows what they're doing and you're not just being outperformed by somebody else who's way, way better at what you do than you are.
Right.
So that's a really neat thing about PPC is like, depending on how hot the market is, the lead price will change. And what that means is there's no such thing as PPC being overpriced long-term. The only companies I've ever found that think it is just because they're not dialed in enough. Like somebody else has it more figured out than you. Because you're saying, I'm upset because I'm getting a 2x return and you do $10,000 deals. Meanwhile, someone else knows how to make $20,000 deals in your market and they're getting the same metrics on the front end, but they end up with a 4x return and they're happy. Those are the situations where people aren't happy with PPC. It's because someone else has it more dialed in than you. But if you can, that's in my opinion, what makes it really, really viable. Like let's just say the market took a horrible turn. Well, PPC, the lead cost would go way down and that would supplement for it. Like one of the best times ever in PPC was COVID because what happened was the real estate market went on fire. Meanwhile, people cut their marketing budgets. So the PPC cost per lead overnight got cut in half, yet the value per lead like increased. It was like one of the highest ROI times for our clients. So it just gives you like a picture of like how the landscape works. And it could be overvalued. There could be a bubble in PPC for like a little period of time, but then that goes away because at the end of the day, like nobody will be able to afford to overpay for PPC for a really long time.
Right. Love it, man. This has been illuminating, awesome stuff. But I can't let you go without putting you through the lightning round. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Cool. So look, I have a series of rapid fire questions for you. You don't know the question. I don't know your answer. So just say the very first thing that comes to your mind. What's one book that's been instrumental to your growth as a business owner?
Leadership and Self-Deception.
I gotta check that one out. Do you know the author?
The Arbinger Institute.
Awesome.
That's a great one.
Yeah, no, really, really good. If you could have drinks or coffee with any one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Shoot, I'm not good at these questions. These hypotheticals. I choose my wife.
I like that. I think my wife would be jealous of that answer. What is your best advice for, someone looking to do their very first deal kind of from a PPC lead?
Oh, good question. I mean, plan for it, plan the proper budget and the proper amount of time, and be really honest with yourself about what it's going to take, and don't change course based on how you feel. That's
awesome.
Like the biggest problem we have at the beginning. And usually people have to go, like, I see it happen all the time, that people like start with this agency and work with them for a few months, start with this other one, work with them for a few months. They just keep on hopping around agencies until someday they just realize you just got to like stick with it. And that's how you get it to work. And they waste all this money in the process. So that biggest advice, like if you haven't ever done the channel before, people who are really good at PPC, they're basically really good at getting beat up and still just doing it anyways. And they have their great times and then they have their bad times, and all together it averages out to like pretty good times.
Right.
And it's worth it.
Love it. Good stuff. What's one mistake on a deal, specifically maybe a client or business in general, that if you could do over, you would take that do over?
Oh, a mistake if I could do over. I mean, it's always hiring stuff. Like the biggest mistakes you'll make in your business are hiring the wrong people. For
1,000%.
Sure. Yeah. I wish I could tell you how to avoid that, because you never really know until after you've screwed it up, and then you like very clearly understand where you went wrong. But
right.
That's always it.
Very true. Very true. What's the financial goal for your team for this calendar year?
What does that mean?
And I think you actually kind of had something in your bio. You guys were looking to, generate $1 billion in profits for your clients. So yeah. Yeah,
that's kind of our overarching goal. And like I said, we've been trending a little over about 50 million a year. But yeah, that's the goal that the whole team's kind of unified on, is that we want to generate $1 billion in revenue for our clients. I don't know exactly how long it'll take. We're well underway.
Love it. Love it. Love it. If you woke up tomorrow with $500 million deposited into your account overnight, what's the first thing you would go out and purchase with that newfound money?
Shoot. I honestly don't know. I'm not going to answer your question directly because I'm going to hopefully add value in a different way. I'm just like a hardcore investor. I know I'm not like a real estate investor, but the way I've done, like even if you look at like how I manage my personal finances, I spend a small portion of what I make and I invest a lot. And my rule is that my personal expenses are like, I want to say $70,000 a year plus 4% of whatever my invested capital is. So, because I'm assuming that like, no matter what happens, one day I'll at least be able to make 4% on my money, and I'll at least be able to find a job for $70,000 a year, both of which are probably undershooting by a far bit. But like, that tells you how like I think about money. I mean, the first thing I think is, I've got $500 million sitting, not accruing any type of interest. I would throw a lot of that money into real estate, and I'd throw a lot of it into stocks, and I would take it from there. That's kind of always been my strategy.
Yeah. Hardcore investor indeed. Love it. Love it. Love it. Last one. What's the best advice you would give someone that's looking to grow and scale their business? And, you as, an entrepreneur and an owner, I'm sure you have some great success. We usually talk about this in the real estate space, but just in your business, like what advice would you give somebody just looking generally to grow and scale their business as an entrepreneur?
I think that's a good question. I mean, probably my favorite like business growth framework is the theory of constraints. And the theory of constraints basically says that a system will grow to its limit until it reaches some constraint. And then at that point, that constraint needs to be fixed in order for it to grow to its next limit. And then there's a new constraint, et cetera, right? So there's always some constraint. I see like the biggest thing I see that hurts people, in my opinion, is that they focus, like they're not talented enough in finding the right constraint and on fixing those problems. So like, you're thinking that your marketing's the problem. Meanwhile, acquisitions is the reason that you're filtering your marketing channels and you can't seem to find any marketing channel that actually works for you. Or you think that you don't have enough marketing channels. Meanwhile, you have a marketing channel that's working for you. It's right in front of you. And all you've got to do is just increase your spend allocation into that channel. And that's the next step to growing your business. Like there's all these different things and everybody has this, like for me, the very first constraint was I don't have any clients. And then you find clients and the constraint is I can't find a way to scale my fulfillment of clients. So even if I have unlimited clients right now, I can't do that much work. And then you have that constraint to fix. And then maybe you need to fix the constraint of I can't retain clients or like, there's always a different constraint, but like where people get screwed up, in my opinion, is they spend their time solving the wrong problem instead of truly focusing on what's hurting their business. And very often, like in my business, what would happen is if I just focus all my effort and all my attention on that one thing, you saw that one constraint, especially in the earlier stages, I get to the point where like my business can double just based on solving a single constraint. And then you run into your next constraint, and et cetera.
Yeah, I love that, man. Is there a book on that topic that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No, for sure. No, you might need to write the book, bro, because that was a very illuminating. That's definitely going to be helpful for our listeners. And I just want to say thank you, man, because we learned so much. You really took us through PPC as a general marketing channel, some of the early challenges, how folks need to be considering, building their business around it and the timeline of what it takes to really be successful. Really, really great stuff, bro. I appreciate you. And I want to know, how can people reach out to learn more about you, follow, your company, and even work with you guys?
Yeah, good question. So there's two places I would point to. Number one is to our website. It's batemancollective.com. You'll find a link there to schedule a strategy consultation just through on the forms. If you're interested in working with us, maybe you're running a PPC campaign and you want an expert to take a look at it, tell you if you're headed the right direction. Maybe you're just considering it as a channel and you want to talk to somebody about your circumstance. That's a great place to go. And then secondarily, if you like this kind of content, I do have a podcast. It's called the Collective Clicks Podcast. You can search that on any major directory, or you can go to podcast.batemancollective.com. And in there, we have tons of information about digital marketing for real estate investors. Like some of these things that you and I just touched on today, where we just talked about it for like, just 2 minutes and moved by. We have entire like series of multiple episodes that talk just like deep dive into those topics. So if you're considering like online marketing, I think like I'm not the kind of person that thinks you need to know everything, because that's why you hire experts. But you need to know enough to be savvy to be able to know how to get the most out of those experts and know like when things are going wrong and understand strategy and how to interact with the other parts of your business and stuff like that. And that's exactly why that podcast was designed.
Very true, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. And guys, while you're at it, head over to sendmoreoffers.com. Nothing there for sale, just a bunch of great, show notes, and all the best, guests. Show notes are there. You can connect with me. And if you need any help in your business, you can book some time with me there at sendmoreoffers.com. Brandon, this has been incredible. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot. Can't wait to meet up with you in person one of these days, and I'm going to continue to follow your journey.
Cool. Awesome. Appreciate you, Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, as always, send more offers, do more deals. Till next time. Peace.
That's all for this episode of the Send More Offers Real Estate Show with Brandon Barnes. But we know you're craving more knowledge to get yourself ready for that next deal. To schedule a call with Brandon to learn more about how to do deals consistently without seller appointments in a repeatable way, be sure to visit us at sendmoreoffers.com. And be sure to tune in for the next episode of the Send More Offers Real Estate Show.